So the big question on everyone's mind about the movie is, where can I get one of those rat kebabs? I mean, is this movie any good? And is it going to turn the MCU around? Well, my answer is complicated. I guess my short answer is that it's not terrible. At least it's a step in the right direction. I mean, the fact that I went to see this at 9 p.m. and the shows are pretty much sold out, that's gotta say something, right? So the opening weekend should be safe from any kind of flop, but in my opinion, it wasn't really something that I needed to watch again, which is the very thing that Disney and Marvel really need. So with that said, spoilers ahead and let's begin, shall we? So we start off on Nowhere, which has been turned into the Guardians' new headquarters. Quill hasn't really come to terms with the loss of Gamora, and is really bringing the mood of the team down, that they're trying to figure out a way of bringing him back up. But really, it starts off with everyone just chilling and just getting on with their day. The Ravager guy is still trying to train himself on how to use Yondo's arrow, and Rocket's testing out some gravity boots. And things turn very fast when our boy Adam Warlock comes to take Rocket, and then we're off to the races. And also, we very quickly get the two first scares that we might actually lose someone in the Guardians, Drax and Nebula. But it's okay, there was not really any danger. They was alright a few seconds later. Except for Rocket, who's been mortally wounded, and there's a kill switch inside of his body, so it stops any kind of treatment. This really kicks everything off, as the Guardians need to find a code thingy to deactivate the kill switch and save Rocket's life. Now, I'll warn you that if you were expecting a lot of Rockets in this movie kicking ass, and then you're going to be bitterly disappointed. It's out of commission for most of the movie. That said, I feel that the strongest element of the movie is all the flashbacks that tell, Rocket's origin story. And when I say it's the strongest element, I really actually genuinely enjoy it. However, I will say that if you get triggered or can't handle any type of animal cruelty, then this part is going to be upsetting and possibly anxiety inducing. To be honest, watching these flashbacks give me flashbacks of, Watership Down. However, through the flashbacks, what they do is tell Rocket's origin story. And let me tell you, it really pulls on the heartstrings. I'm not really going to go hard into it. I'm just going to say you're going to have to watch it yourself. It really is quite beautiful. The only thing I'd really change about it is if they made a Disney Plus TV series out of it and just focused on something else for the rest of the movie. But if you're not inclined to pay the subscription for Disney Plus, I'd understand that, but you'd be missing out on such a great story. I feel it's one of the very few things that they've done recently where they've actually done it right. Anyway, as I said, the Guardians need some kind of a code to save Rocket's life, and they're on the way to a biological space station, where they're intercepted by the Ravengers and meet Gamora, as apparently Nebula has been in constant contact with her behind Quill's back, and they have an appointment with her. So she comes along to the space station with them, where they meet Security Chief Nathan Fillion in some kind of padded alien sumo wrestler outfit. Honestly, they do actually fit the surroundings pretty well, but you may not be wanting an action figure unless, I don't know, you want some kind of plush toy out of this. You're definitely probably not going to want them in your display cabinet. Anyway, they pass security and they try to tactfully ask the staff about the code that they need, when angry Gamora starts, holding people hostage and shooting up the place, where we get another scene where Drax cries wolf and almost dies again. At this point, all stakes have just been demolished at this point, as a few minutes later, he's back on his feet again. Honestly, this stuff just goes on throughout the movie. It's just annoying. So eventually they get what they need, and they get this little device thingy that apparently has the code in it. But then they find that it's been taken by one of the guys that work for the Great Evolutionary, who is the guy that made Rocket. However, not before watching a holo recording of the surgery that made Rocket what he was. And even Nebula is horrified by this. She actually says that it's worse than what Thanos did to her. So the Guardians head off to try and find the High Evolutionary. And after having a few cheap laughs on what seems to be a copy of the Earth that was in about the 60s, in order to create the perfect society, Quill and Groot get to him and steal the code. So they get back to Rocket and save his life, But they've all found out that the High Evolutionary is keeping a load of animals, children, etc., etc. And they obviously can't leave without saving them. Now, all hell breaks out. Quill almost dies trying to save his updated Walkman by floating in space a little bit too long. And this is probably the biggest plot hole of the entire movie. Where's his space helmet? We don't see it in the movie, yet he had it in Infinity War and Endgame. I guess the plot needed this to happen as Adam Warlock saves him. During the whole rescue mission, Rocket almost kills his creator and then states that he can't because he's a guardian. Just this whole, heroes thing. Now, you might be wondering, why is he just skimmed through the whole movie? It's really because that in the movie, other than slowing down for Rocket's flashbacks, that's exactly kind of what really happened. And that's what it felt like. It's like James Gunn was told that he needed to tell Rocket's story in his origins and then just put a load of stuff together around that and just see what happens. Sure, there was some laughs and stuff, but other than the centralized story, it just felt like all the other characters were, just there. And they didn't really have anything about them other than to just, get the mission sorted. I do have to say this about it, though. It wasn't just another apocalyptic, multiverse-ending event, like what seems to be happening everywhere right now. Though the villain was a bit too mustache-twirling for my taste, I do feel that we all kind of just needed that. It was just on the one planet with the one guy who just had misguided notions. We can save the Thanos level threats for the Avenger movies. Honestly though, if you can get past the many plot holes like where's Quill's helmet, why they're using Teletubby spacesuits instead of having the ones where they just push onto their chest and something expands around them, why they almost keep dying but then they're okay, and the fact that the soundtrack was dialed up to 11, and the utter shoehorn that Adam Warlock was in this movie, and the consistent beating on Quill by Gamora, and Nebula being angry pretty much 100% of the time, etc., etc. If you take into consideration all that, it's actually a half-decent 2.5 hours. Till, of course, the Guardians split up, and don't worry, Star-Lord will return. You thought I'd forgot about that, didn't you? Honestly, with Star-Lord returning home, Mantis going off to find herself, Gamora going back to the Scavengers, Nebula going back to nowhere to, look after the community. And the one thing that Drax learned from all this is that it's not Drax the Destroyer, here's Drax the father figure. I just felt that after this long trilogy, it was just a bit disappointing, that was all. However, there is just one last thing I have to ask you guys before I go. Would you like mayo with that?